in our refueling in the near term?
Well, actually, I was talking about the survivability. So more tails in the air, right? So ensuring that we continue the recapitalization of the KC-135 fleet into the future, and then really, Chairman, we can talk about this in another session, but making sure that as they get into a more and more contested environment, and they do those things that air refueling does so well, which allows our combat capability to have the loitering time and all of the time to be able to spend more time prosecuting targets, we need to make sure that those air refuelers that we have can stay in the air and can maintain more survivability. So it's not only just the modernization of it, but also looking to make it more survivable.
Thank you, General, and thank you, Senator Cotton. Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to follow up on that very question. One way to help on the tanker capacity is KC-46s at Bangor, affectionately known as the Maniacs. As you know, they provided enormous support during the Gulf War and anything on the east side of the United States in terms of Europe, the Middle East. It's going to be an incredibly important capacity. So they're doing fantastically with their present fleet, but the KC-46s is the next generation. And as you pointed out yourself, tankers are the heart and soul of being able to keep our forces over the target. So I hope that's something on your agenda.
Absolutely, Senator. And sort of the Maniacs were they're on the list as part of one of the candidate locations, and the final location for preferred location will happen in the fourth quarter of this year.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And Mr. Chairman, I think we could save a lot of money on the F-47 because Secretary Mink is the only Secretary of the Air Force I know of who's ever designed, built, and flown his own experimental aircraft. So we could just have him do the F-47 himself, right, Secretary Mink?
Is that the form of a motion?
I don't think my garage has the infrastructure to build a 46, but.
Thank you. General Alvin, I am concerned about availability and mission availability. You mentioned a couple of figures, 50%, 62%. The commercial air fleet is in the high 90s. Now, granted, there are more complicated systems in the military, but I believe, and this applies to the Navy as well, that we really don't put enough emphasis on maintenance and availability. We're talking about very expensive products here, very expensive aircraft, and if we had more of them ready to fly, we perhaps wouldn't have to buy as many new ones. So I hope that could, I see that as closing that gap between 62% and 98%, which is the commercial availability rate, would go a long way toward helping us with our budget and also helping us with our readiness.
Well, Senator, thank you for that. I would say that one of the big challenges is that the airlines have a profit model. They have a different business model. And so as they look at that, they generate their
the difference
value.
is they have to meet a profit realization rate, and we don't. The military doesn't. And I think, I'm just saying, surely we can get beyond 62%.
I do believe, Senator, we do need to improve. I think one of the big challenges, though, is what I was trying to drive at is the KC-135s, the average one, is as old as me, and I'm no spring chicken. And so the airlines, they just throw theirs out after a certain amount because it becomes cost ineffective for them to maintain older platforms that it can still have enough seats, passenger seats, to maintain a profit. So they'll dump those off to the side.
I understand that, but do you believe that we can do better than 62%?
I do believe we can do better, and I think it becomes more challenging the older the aircraft get because we're discovering new things all the time because they're breaking in new and different ways. But yes, Senator, we can continue to do better. We put more money against it every year. Unfortunately, for the past few years, despite the increased money that we put into weapons system sustainment, because the increase of age, it takes more man hours and more mechanical hours, we aren't getting that much of an increase because we're spending more time trying to fix those. And so, but that is a challenge we're constantly working. We do need to improve.
Thank you. General Saltzman, you've been very diplomatic today, but if we were starting with a blank sheet of paper in terms of the threats that we're facing, particularly the militarization of space by both the Russians and the Chinese, 3% of the defense budget for the Space Force is totally inadequate. And I hope you can comment on that, understanding that you're under the subject of the defense budget and all those kinds of things. But as far as I'm concerned, we need to vastly, significantly increase the availability of funds to the Space Force, given the magnitude of the mission to which you've been assigned.
I agree, Senator. The last 3 years of funding has not allowed me to go as quickly as possible, putting counterspace capabilities together that address the targets that I'm being asked to address by U.S. Space Command, amongst other combatant commanders.
One of the ways I like to think about these things is if you were starting with a blank sheet of paper for allocation of defense funds today, I don't think there's any question that the Space Force would get substantially more resources given the development of the threat, which is the first hours or days of any conflict with a major adversary are going to take place in space. And as you mentioned, and as Senator Fisher mentioned, sensors, GPS, everything is going to depend on our ability to defend that domain. So I certainly hope to work with members of the committee to see that you have the resources adequate to meet the challenges that you've been asked to meet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator King. Senator Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me just say thank you to all three of you for your service to our country. Secretary Mink,